All right, so if you want to learn how to move like a true athlete, well, this video is going to have you covered. I'm going to go over my formula, the strategy that I use for all of my athletes. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Daru. I've been in the performance world for the past 16 years, worked with 7 world champions, well over 200 professional athletes. And this is the direct system that I use to help my guys and girls move like true athletes to get them prepared for battle. Let's get into it. All right, so the objective of this video is going to teach you how to create a standard operating procedure to improve your movement quality, enhance your overall coordination and body awareness. That's gonna make you move like a true athlete, right? The biggest thing that I see when I bring in an athlete, I wanna see if they have the ability to move in all planes of motion, they know how to move with high dynamic fashion, but also know how to balance their body, right? When they move in space, or how they can redirect force. That's gonna be key when you're trying to build true athleticism. Focus points that we're gonna look at is gonna be posture and mobility, right? So we want to enhance your breathing quality. We want to enhance your range of motion of all the joints so that you can move freely without any stiffness and be direct with those movements as you go throughout space for your sport, whatever have you. It could be combat sports, it could be field-based sports, doesn't matter. The goal here is to increase your range of motion and increase your ability to take in oxygen and let off CO2. Balance and proprioception, where we want to have proper movement drills orientated to whatever planes of motion that we're trying to work towards. So when you're talking about dynamic movements, right, we want to be able to structure our body, distribute our weight, and balance out those movements so that you can move efficiently when you're in your sport or whatever have you. And then the last thing is going to be strength and stability, right? Moving through foundational patterns, squat, hinge, push, pull, rotate, gait, all of that are going to be important for any sport that you're trying to work towards. So we're going to work on that, and I'm going to show you how you can enhance it going forward. Let's get into it. Step number 1, postural alignment, right? So postural restoration, we're going to work on our PRI techniques. We're going to work on structural integrity, meaning I'm going to put you in the position, right? We're going to put ourselves in the position to breathe effectively, because if our posture is off, then our balance will be off. So we're going to do what's called 90-90 breathing drills. We're going to do 2 sets of 5 breaths, and I'll show you in a minute what that means. Then from there, we're going to do what's called controlled articular rotations, or CARs. That's going to be joint mobilization. So each joint needs to have proper mobility and stability. We're going to make sure that our joints are moving like true joints, meaning that you have proper range of motion to get into positions and to be strong and functional in those positions. You're going to do 2 sets of 5 each on the rotations. Then we're going to move on to step number 2, which is creating better movement quality, right? So now we're going to move more dynamically. So we're going to move faster. We're going to use spatial awareness. So we're going to understand where our body is in space. And then we're going to do that through all planes of motion. So I like to use what's called a cross-connect walk. That's going to help with rotation. It's also going to facilitate your movement when you're talking about your gait. So you're going to do 2 sets of 10 yards. Then we're going to go into squat, hinge, lunge, push, and pull. These are foundational patterns that we're going to do body weight first, and then we can load it. Because at the end of the day, as a coach, if I'm looking at an athlete and they cannot move in a particular pattern without load, I'm not going to load that pattern. So we're going to do 2 sets, and we're going to do as many repetitions as needed to make sure that the movement sticks and it looks good. Now, step number 3, once you're able to move freely without load, then we're going to have to load it. So now we have to build strength and stability. So we're going to use what's called progressive overload, meaning that we're going to progress in load each week to get you stronger and more structurally sound. So we're going to use bilateral and unilateral exercises. And typically when you're looking at strength, we want to work in a 5 repetition range. If you're looking at intensity from a percentage perspective, anywhere from 75 to 85% will suffice. Step number 4 is going to be building power and speed dynamics. So now we're going to work into our low-level plyometrics, higher-level plyometrics, and multi-directional plyometrics, along with some dynamic effort, which is speed strength, meaning you're going to move load very fast. So we're going to use things like jumping, bounding, throwing motions. This is typically going to be 3 to 5 sets at 3 to 5 repetitions. You don't want too much reps because we want it to stay fast. Loaded high velocity exercises. So now we're going to work into our speed strength, meaning that the velocity on the bar, you're going to have to use and move at a certain speed so that you can get that directed adaptation. So when you're looking at it from a sets and reps perspective, 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 reps, keep it fast, keep it right around, if you're looking at it from a velocity perspective, meters per second, 1.0 to even 1.5, maybe even 2.0 meters per second is going to be directed for speed strength. All right, let's get into it. Step number one, postural alignment. So we're going to start off doing 90-90 breathing techniques. And the reason why we want to have our posture aligned is because if we don't, then it's going to throw off our movement quality. So making sure that you have proper posture is going to be key. There's several things that you could do, but this is one exercise that I like to do typically when I start off with an athlete that shows more of that kyphotic posture, or maybe they're broken and they have like an anterior pelvic tilt, something like that. That's going to help fix that to a degree as long as they stay consistent with it. So you're going to come onto the floor. All right, so we got a 90-90 position here. So 90-degree angle on the knees and hips. From here, I'm going to go ahead, drop my head down. My hands are going to, palms are going to be facing up. So I'm in that supinated position, shoulders are gonna be down and packed. From there, I'm gonna pull down on the wall, lift my hips up slightly, and stack my pelvis underneath my rib cage. From there, I'm gonna take a big deep breath in through my rib cage or through my lumbar spine and get 360 degrees of expansion, meaning I'm gonna breathe through the diaphragm. So I'm gonna take my tongue, put it on the roof of the mouth, and breathe through my nose. As I go to exhale, I'm gonna activate my obliques. And again, my hamstrings are still on tension. My hips are aligned, and I'm not pushing hard into the wall. I'm keeping about 50% tension. Biggest thing that you wanna be mindful of is do not breathe from your upper chest. So you don't wanna go like this and lift the shoulders. You wanna keep the shoulder blades packed down, lats engaged, hamstrings on, right? And the pelvis and the hips are slightly off the ground here. Now, if you see yourself pulling out this way, more in that externally rotated position with your hips, you can use a Medball or a roller to keep in between your legs to give you a tactile cue to maintain your hip position so you don't fall out of that position, right? Again, you wanna do 2 to maybe 3 sets of 5 breaths. All right, so now moving on to the controlled articular rotations. This is mobility for the joints. The goal here is to gain more active range of motion, right? So when you're looking at flexibility, that's passive range of motion. Mobility is active range of motion. So what I'm gonna do is I'll start with my ankles, and you wanna go up the kinetic chain. So you wanna go from ankles, knees, hips, all the way up the spine and into the shoulders, even wrists and elbows. But I'm gonna show you a couple that you could do here. I do have a video that goes over the entire controlled articular rotations, or we call it the morning routine, in a past video, so you could check that out there. But with the ankles, all you're gonna do, you're going to make sure that you lock down the adjacent joint so it's not moving, you're not compensating. So I'm gonna take my hands, I'm gonna place it on my knee, right? Because I'm gonna be working the ankle. And all I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead, lift my toes to the top of the shoe. So I'm gonna dorsiflex my ankle, and then I'm gonna go ahead and turn in. I'm gonna bring it down, slowly, work it out to the side, lift, and then bring it back around, almost like a horseshoe. Nice and slow and controlled. You don't want any jarring motion, right? Not sporadic motion. We wanna keep it smooth and slow. Nice and controlled. I'm not moving my knee, not moving my hip. Everything is locked in place. The only thing that's moving is the ankle, all right? Now, you can progress this by adding some type of load, or you can go ahead and do more repetitions if you feel like it's necessary. But typically, you wanna do about 5 reps or 5 rotations, right? Up and then back around, nice and controlled and slow. Now, I'll give you one more for the hip. If you lack range of motion in the hips, and most athletes do because we're tight with hips, we wanna start on the ground. Now, if you can progress it, go to standing. And the standing is gonna be here with your arm on the wall just for balance. The other foot that's on the ground is gonna give you stability, right? So you're gonna grab the ground with the toes. Basically, you're gonna spread the toes out. That's why I like the Vivos, but you're gonna spread the toes out, create torque, right? And lock in that hip. From here, you're just gonna create balance with the wall, or could be a rack, doesn't matter. And then from here, I'm gonna drive my knee up. So we're gonna get it to hip flexion, right? As I'm doing that, I'm maintaining this straight leg on the down leg, making sure that my knee doesn't collapse or cave in or break. So I'm locking in, I'm getting glute activation here on the down leg. From here, I'm gonna go up into hip flexion. I'm gonna turn it out, right? Get the knee out. So abduct out. I'm gonna internally rotate without kicking my chest forward and arching my low back. So I'm still keeping my hips engaged, right? Glute is still on a down leg. I'm gonna kick it back into extension. From there, you should feel a deep contraction in your glute medius. From here, I'm gonna internally rotate. Hold position, your hamstring, you should feel that with your glute. Hold position, again, stacking that rib cage, maintaining core posture, and then bringing it back around nice and controlled again. So you're gonna start over, right? Lock everything in place. You're gonna create what's called irradiation. So I'm gonna squeeze my fist, locking every other joint that's not moving in place. So I'm here, hip flexion, abduction, internal rotation, extension, bring it in, back around, big circle, and then back down, okay? Do this about 2 times through. You can do 3 to 5 repetitions on both legs. All right, so another joint that typically is tight on a lot of athletes is gonna be the shoulders. So with the controlled articular rotations, eventually you wanna load it. So you'll grab like a weight, small little weight, maybe a dumbbell, 2 pounds, and load it. But in the beginning, do it without any weight. So we're gonna lock everything down, same concept, create irradiation, and then from here, I'm gonna go ahead and protract the shoulder. So I'm gonna pull the shoulder forward, right? And then from there, fingers are out. I'm gonna go ahead and raise it up into shoulder flexion. I'm gonna go as high as I can without the elbow bending, without my trunk bending to the side. So I'm gonna keep it up, arm is straight, get to the end range. You'll feel that end range. Then from there, I'm gonna internally rotate the shoulder. So I'm gonna turn the hand out. I'm gonna bring it all the way around in a big circle. As you can hear that crack, that's a good crack. It's good. Lock in the lat. So I'm pulling the shoulder blade down now, right? So I'm actually pulling the shoulders down. I'm activating the lats, and then I'm gonna go ahead and reverse the process, going all the way up, all the way around, right? So again, start protraction, raise up, internal rotation, shoulder depressed down, lats engaged, bring it all the way back to extension. Again, externally rotate, and then back around, all right? Same sets and reps apply. 2 sets, 5 repetitions, 2 to 5 repetitions. All right, so step number 2, now we're gonna start to move, right? Move in space. So these are the cross-connect walks. Now, the reason why I like these is, 1, it works the transverse plane, but it also gets you moving, right, in that linear fashion. So the goal here is to maintain stability on the down leg while working rotation through the oblique, what we call the oblique sling, right? So the anterior and posterior oblique sling. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna raise the knee up into hip flexion just like I was doing with the mobs or the cars. And then I'm gonna rotate my shoulders. So I'm gonna rotate, but not crunch. So I'm rotating and reaching, elbow comes up, it meets the knee, right? It doesn't have to touch, but you just wanna get it to where it's close enough where you're breaking that midline. I'm gonna hold that position, squeezing the glute, and then I'm gonna come down, heel toe, switch position, boom. And I'm gonna work through the thoracic spine. I'm trying to rotate the thoracic spine in hip flexion, maintaining balance, working the adductors, keeping pressure down on the ball of the big toe. Switch, hold, switch, hold. So you have balance, stability, movement, control, right? And you're also working a little bit of active mobility here too, because you have to get to that end range. If you do it right, you'll feel your obliques turn on, right? Your lats are engaged, your hip flexors, your adductors, your glutes, everything is working here. Then you can speed it up once you get to that good position, you feel comfortable. Start getting here. Speed up the dynamic capabilities. Once you start to transition into increasing the speed, you can also start to load it. So you can use a kettlebell, right? Use 2 kettlebells in one hand. But again, you wanna make sure that you're maintaining your balance, you're maintaining your position, right? And you're working those muscles that stabilize the body as you go to move, right? Let's do it. All right, so foundational patterns now. We're gonna work bilateral, and then we'll start to work unilateral once we go into more higher dynamic stuff. But bilateral squat, right? Very simple, the most foundational pattern of all, right? We're gonna work towards increasing range of motion in our hips and our knees, but we're doing without load. So this is gonna be a prerequisite to getting you underneath a back squat or front squat, whatever have you. So typically, you wanna get to a position, right? I always tell my guys, go put your feet in a position of where you're gonna jump from, right? Mostly. Now, a lot of times they're not gonna have the hip mobility to get this narrow and squat, so you have to bring them out just a little bit, which is fine in the beginning. But the goal is to get about shoulder width and be able to squat directly down with your chest upright. So what I like to do is either it's gonna be hands out in front, or it's gonna be hands behind the back or behind the head. That's gonna keep their posture upright, right? If they can't do that, then you wanna go ahead and grab a dowel, or you wanna grab some type of rack to maintain posture, right? So if I'm gonna go down, I wanna break at the knees, and then I wanna hinge the hips. And as I come down, I'm gonna go as low as I can without falling over or without rounding my back too much. So I'm gonna keep tight upright posture, then from there, I'm gonna drive up. Now, if you start to see yourself do this, as you come down, and then your back starts to round, your knees kick forward, and let's just say your toes splay out, then you're losing that range that you need to have in order for you to get underneath load. So in order for us to improve that, we're gonna increase the range of motion, but we're still gonna work that pattern. So I'm gonna take a rack, put my hands here for balance, chest upright, still keeping good posture, so I'm not overly extended, I'm not arching my back too much, and I'm gonna just come down in that same shoulder width position, as low as I can, with my chest up, and my knees going slightly forward. And then you're just gonna raise back up. Work this as much as you can. You'll find out your limitations, whether it be your ankles, your hips, or maybe it's your upper back. But once you find that out, work on your mobility of those joints to enhance the pattern of the squat. All right, so upper body, right? You're gonna use a push-up variation, and then we'll probably use a pull-up variation. But the push-up variation shows me many things. It shows me core stability, it shows me upper body strength, it shows me coordination, it shows me mobility issues and stability issues. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the individual come down to the floor, right? We're gonna go right in between, probably like hip width on the feet, and then they're gonna get into the push-up position. Now the push-up position, I want shoulder width, right? I don't wanna go too far out wide, I don't wanna go too inside. So hands are down. What I wanna see is the elbow abducted about 45 degrees away from the body. So if I look down at you, you should look like an arrow, right? So as I come here, now my glutes are engaged, my abs are tight, my head is aligned. I'm not up like this, I'm not tucking my chin down. I'm just keeping my head aligned. And then from there, I'm gonna go ahead and descend. So I'm gonna go ahead and come down in the eccentric fashion, right? As I come down, I'm not losing my hips, keeping my abs engaged. And then I'm gonna touch my chest and come back up. So it looks like this. Coming down, full extension of the elbows, making sure that there's no deviation in the hips. This is a good prerequisite for any type of movement, especially in pressing motion. But if I do see any lag in the hips or anything of that nature, or a shift in the hips, or let's just say a shoulder instability issue, you're gonna see them shift from side to side. So be mindful of that when you do your push-ups, if you're looking at it from a video perspective. Always make sure that you look at yourself while, or at least find out what you look like when you're doing the exercise. So videotaping it, right? Obviously, if you don't have a gym like this, you can't do it too much. But if you have a friend or a training partner that can videotape you while you do it, that's gonna be beneficial to showcase where your limitations are. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the pull-up. With the pull-up or a chin-up, depending on your range of motion and the joint prerequisites that you have to identify that. So a proper pull-up is going to allow for your arms to be at a shoulder width position. As you go to pull down, the elbows are tracking just like a push-up in that 45-degree angle. When you go to pull all the way up, you don't wanna see your shoulder kind of round forward, right? So that internal rotation of the shoulder. We wanna make sure we maintain posture, so we're working the lats and the rear delts as we go to pull up. If you do lack that, work on your range of motion in the shoulder, and then switch to some sort of, we would call it chin-up position, so a supinated position. This way, your shoulders are gonna be back, and as you go to pull, you wanna maintain your posture. So you don't wanna round forward here. It's gonna protect your elbows and it'll protect your shoulders. So this is what it looks like from a pull-up perspective. okay? Keep your legs straight. Really, I wanna see squeezed glutes and inner thighs, right? It's gonna lock in your core, your midsection, so your body's not swinging back and forth. The chin up, same concept. Now we're going from here, pulling up, back down. Right? Thing that I don't want you to do is this. Where your shoulders round forward, right? In time, if you do that through repetition and you add load, you're gonna cause issues in the joints. All right, next one. All right, so once you master some of the body weight exercises, it's time to add load. You're gonna use bilateral and unilateral exercises if you're able to do so with good range of motion and with good fluidity, right? So I like the rear foot elevated split squat or Bulgarian split squat, whatever you wanna call it. But the goal here, especially for athletes, is to make sure that you're strong on both sides of the body or on each leg or each arm, right? So I wanna make sure that I'm using intensity, meaning load, and I'm using the volume, meaning repetition, as balanced as possible. So with this, you can grab dumbbells, you can grab a barbell, right? If you're looking to gain maximal strength, the intensity is gonna be higher, meaning that you're gonna have more weight on the bar or more weight in your hands. If you're looking to really maximize strength, use a barbell, right? If you're working to enhance more hypertrophy or muscle building, you can use dumbbells. If you wanna work on more of a core stability, you can use kettlebells and offset the kettlebell. So you can have one heavy, one light, and try to work that too as well. That's going to not only improve your strength, but your stability and coordination, all right? So without the weight, let's say I have my dumbbells in the hands, I'm gonna bring my foot up, I'm gonna come straight down, and as I come down, my knee's gonna track slightly over my toes, and then I'm gonna come straight up. Now, you don't wanna be too far out. As I see this a lot, there's a huge stretch on the hip flexors here, and guys tend to go here. It's a big stretch, and you start to arch your back, right? Don't do that. Come back, make sure the knee is right behind the hip, abs are tight, your core is engaged, right? You got the dumbbells, or you got the barbell on your back, or maybe even a front rack position, but everything is still stacked. So I'm not overly extended, and I'm not rounded at the shoulders. Locking in, I'm coming straight down, and then driving up. When you look at it from a sport-specific standpoint, the rear foot elevated is similar to, let's say for wrestlers, a shot, right? Maybe a blast double or a takedown, right? When you're looking at sprinting, right, it's getting off the blocks, especially if you have the knee driving over the toe in that acceleration fashion. All right, so bench press, right? There's another foundational pattern exercise, a pressing motion, but it's a part of the big three. So when you're trying to improve strength, like maximal strength, using the bench press is gonna be key for that because it's a compound lift, meaning that you're using not just your chest, but you're using multiple muscle groups at once. With the bench press, especially when you're powerlifting, we end up using our entire body. So the way I set up, I'm gonna be able to use my hips, my legs to get leg drive, and obviously my upper body. So when you get the bench press, you wanna make sure that you're right underneath the bar, the eyes are looking right at the knurling here, and then you're gonna take your hand position. Now, for athletes, I like to just keep it at shoulder width position, right? Or even inside shoulder width at times. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure it through my thumb. So the edge of the knurling, I'm gonna go finger, my thumb at the edge of the knurling, and I'm gonna grab the bar, right? From there, I'm gonna bring my heels back to my hips. I'm gonna take my inner thighs, I'm gonna squeeze the bench and squeeze my glutes. That's gonna lock me into the bench. From there, I'm gonna pull my shoulder blades back and down. So really I'm bringing my shoulder blades into the back pocket, right? So I act as if my scaps are going into my back pocket. From there, I'm gonna grab the bar tight, squeeze, lift off the rack. Now notice my hand position and my wrist position. My wrists are straight. They're not cocked like this. So I'm acting as if I'm gonna punch the ceiling. From there, my chest is up, my lats are engaged. I'm gonna bend the bar, so I'm gonna activate my lats and bring the bar down to my sternum, right? From there, I'm gonna spread the bar apart, meaning I'm gonna activate my triceps, and I'm gonna drive off my chest. Bringing it down, drive, right? What I see a lot of, they'll have their thumbs out in this suicide grip position, which is very dangerous if you have heavy weight. I've seen guys drop 500 pounds on their chests with this position. So pull the thumbs over. Lock in your wrist so that you could stack the bones. It'll give you more force output. As I come down, I'm grabbing the bench, pulling my chest to the bar. As I go to press, I'm using my leg drive. So it means I'm gonna go ahead and basically do a leg extension on the floor. Leg extension and then drive. So now you got a little bit more of explosivity from the end range. Down, down. When you get done with your set, you should feel your back engaged, your glutes engaged. Everything was turned on because it is a compound movement if you did it the correct way. Load this up. You want to go to about 5-6 repetitions. If you're really trying to gain max strength, then obviously you want to go 1 to 3 reps if you have the ability to do so. All right, so once you've established your strength, your stability, and you've worked the compound movements, now it's time to move faster. So we're gonna start off with plyometrics and basically jumping, bounding, skipping, things like that in a lower level, and then we're gonna start to increase the complexity of the movement. So first thing that I like to do is just work on force absorption, right? So loading and then stopping that force coming down, right? With force absorption, meaning that you have to stop that force as it comes down. So the gravitational pull along with your own body weight. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start off very low intensity, low amplitude. I'm gonna go up to the balls of my feet, right? And then I'm gonna take my hands and I'm gonna drop down into position. So I'm gonna drop down and then hold. The goal here is when you land, you wanna be in a good position to jump again. So as I go down, what you don't wanna see is your knees collapse like this, your feet collapse, or you're just staying off balance. So if you're here and you start going like this and you lose balance, start working that a little bit more so that you can gain the ability to absorb that force better, right? So typically you wanna do about 2 sets of 5 here, drop down, boom. You can make it more dynamic, going from the balls of your feet and then lifting off the ground. So we're gonna lift off the ground and then stick, right? Again, increasing the force absorption. Then you can go into unilateral. So then you're starting at 2, right? And then stick on 1, right? Starting at 2, stick on 1. Again, unilateral is gonna be beneficial, especially once you've gained the prerequisites on the double leg, you can start to move to single leg, right? Once you've done that, you mastered it, now we can go ahead and go into a redirection of force. So we're gonna go from balls of the feet, you're gonna stick, and then jump, and stick, okay? So this is redirection of force, load absorption, and then force output, or rate of force output, I should say, right? So we're here, drop down, boom, come up, stick, right? 2 sets, 5 repetitions there. Once you master that, then we wanna start working on single leg. So you're gonna load, we're gonna drop down, hold, jump, stick on 2, right? Load, drop, jump, stick. 2 sets, 5 each side. Once you've done that, we can start using things like box jumps, or we can do things like hurdle hops and do that reactive. But this is in time, and it's gonna take some time to get that down, especially if you're starting from scratch. Start off with the lower level dynamics, start off with your landing mechanics, and then increase it over time. I would say take about 2 weeks to 4 weeks to master load absorption and redirection of force, and then you can start to work into the higher amplitude work. The higher amplitude work would be something like this, where I'm coming down, drop, up, stick, or I'm going forward, drop, stick, right? Or I'm going lateral, where I'm drop, stick, okay? You can also, like I said, use boxes and hurdles to facilitate more intensity. All right, so Medball variations, right? You're gonna use every throw variation you can with good posture, but you're gonna start off very basic. So a simple one would be a chest pass. Now with the chest pass, if you lack coordination still, right, I wouldn't obviously go to this, but once you've gained the strength, you got all the prerequisites out of the way from mobility to coordination to core control, now you can start to move dynamically in the upper body. So what I'm gonna do is elbows are in tight, I'm gonna just tie it into the hips. So what I wanna see is a small hinge and then a punch out. So small hinge, punch out, boom. The goal here is to just move through this range of motion here. I'm not falling forward, I'm not falling backwards. So you have to have control. I always say power is nothing without control. So make sure that when you're producing that power and producing that high rate of force, you have stability, right? So I'm gonna take the feet, I'm gonna grab the ground and control through the support system. Hinge, punch, hinge, punch, hinge, punch, right? Notice I'm upright when I go to press out, Once you get good at that, we can also go into a slam pattern where all it is we're coming up, we're dropping down, and we're slamming. What I also want to see when you go to slam is sit into position like you're going to do a jump. I always tell the athletes, don't fall forward, don't round the shoulders. Sit back, use the ball as if you're coming down to jump back up, right? So I'm here, elbows are in, hands are up. I'm gonna drop down into a hinge and slam, boom. Now I'm in a position here as if I wanted to jump. What that's gonna do is give you, again, core control and allow you to redirect force when the time comes, right? So I'm here, up, drop, boom. Up, drop, boom. Up, drop, boom. Last one we're gonna talk about is rotation, right? So for my striking sport athletes, my rotational athletes, this is key. We wanna work through the transverse plane. So easy one that we wanna do starting off is gonna be my shoulders to the wall and I'm gonna rotate, right? I'm gonna rotate towards it. So I'm gonna put it into my hip pocket. I'm gonna go underneath and I'm just gonna rotate. You can pivot if you need to, but the goal is trunk rotation. So I'm here, boom, boom. If you want to maximize your movement from the hips up, keep everything here, nothing moves but the trunk. Notice I'm loading my hip and then I'm shooting it through. So I'm loading and extending the hip as I go to rotate, right? So you're tying in, working the kinetic chain. As if I wanted to go pivot, let's say I'm a striker or combat sport athlete where I go to throw my backhand, I got to pivot. I'm going to back up off the wall a little bit, load the hip, and then send it through with the pivot on the foot. Again, work this as many times as you need to. Don't break posture and keep that range of motion effective for the speed that needs to be done. All right, so break it all down. Like I said, you want to start off by improving your posture, improving your range of motion, so your mobility, your active range control. Then you start working into dynamic fashion, working through planes of motion and working linear, lateral, and through all those planes that are effective inside of sport play. Work the transverse plane, work the sagittal plane, work the frontal plane. Also make sure that you have control with those dynamic movements. So when I'm going to be explosive, I have to be in a good position to do that. Load absorption and redirection of force is going to be next after you gain the strength prerequisites. So when it comes down to it, you're gaining all of the strengths necessary for you to do the movements inside of whatever your sport is, right? To be an athlete. The biggest thing that I see as a coach, when I show an individual a movement and they pick it up fast, that's the sign of a good athlete, right? So we want to make sure that we pick things up as fast as we can, but it's going to take some practice. It's going to take some consistent action, right? So just make sure that you're consistent, you're persistent, and you're fine-tuning the details. So you have to be a little bit more conscientious on the way you move in order for you to grow and progress accordingly. All right, so if you want to find out more details, how I break this down, program it, all of that, check out my school community. It's Daru Strong Club. Just launched it. Link is down below to gain access to the workouts and to be a part of a community of individuals working to elevate each other and keep each other accountable. Thanks again for watching. See you guys next time. Peace. What's up, guys? Daru here. Make sure you like this video and subscribe for more. See you on the next one.